Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, John, and this giant dog in my lap. Kiki. Hold on. Off, Kiki. You know the new rule. Up here. Good girl. There we go. And my giant dog, Kiki. The giant fiendish dog. Yeah, you wanted to eat Mama, huh? Wanted to eat Mama this morning? Good girl. Yeah, it's a good girl. All right, silly dog. Yeah, silly monster dog. Okay, let's go. Come on. Yep, it's time to go out and chew. Where's your bully stick? Go ahead, come on. Let's go, Keeks. Good girl. Don't forget your bully, okay? Don't forget your bully. Yeah, don't forget this. Yeah, let's bring it over here. Yes, I know. You want it right here. Right there. Good girl. You stay and chew and I'm gonna work. Good girl. Sorry for that. As usual, I had to reposition the dog. Reposition the dog. Yes, Kodiak, see, that's the thing. Okay, what Kodiak has voiced about this figure is the problem with working with bigger figures. Is that, they last forever. You get sick of looking at them. So, yes. Yes. All right, M. Fontana, thank you for the resub at 41 months. Nice. Alrighty, cool. So I've thought before, recently you guys know I've been thinking about just putting this figure out of the rotation and adding in something new and different. So I'm leaning in that direction. It's NMMs and like little stuff, like technically the smoke on the bottom, the lamp is more NMM. There's little things like that little capsule that I haven't done. Just clean up and it's meh. I'm feeling meh on this one. Like of the two, and this has been the truth since the beginning, but of the 4 models in this set, Fishay is definitely my favorite. So both of these come in the Elemental Scion set. We've been working on both of them. This is the water, this is the air. These are the 2 that I like the most. And they're done in Bones Black, I believe. So like I guess I'm getting spoiled with like Bones USA's like crispness and lack of annoying mold lines, relatively speaking. So although there are things I like about the Genie a lot, but it's also but found the cure for trazodone. Yeah. But then you're drugging them, Miss Tim. Yeah, I have Traz. Like we used it during the when she had to be her heart monitor, when she had to have her heart monitor on, because they didn't want to destroy anything. Yeah, the fish guy is really cool. Ricky Bobby. I did some freehand on the back with the scales and everything. And yeah, it's really cool figure. We're almost done with it. We have a tiny bit of leather and copper NMM. It's in a couple of days. So Monday, I think, we're back on Fishy. Monday. But, yeah, not so thrilled with Genie. So we'll do NMM today. Oh, Malcolm was neutered yesterday. Wow. Got it. So yeah, trazodone necessary then for keeping the puppy calm while he heals up, huh? Yeah, we had our appointment with our new vet yesterday. And Kiki was a dingo, but I really like our new vet. Like, worlds better than the old vet. So I'm happy. This at least got me to do that. Oh, okay. You just started learning NMM. Yeah. It's Ricky Bobby. It's really like, I call it a conceptual technique, NMM, because it isn't anything physical you do necessarily. It's not a particular, you don't have to be perfect at blending. You don't have to be, great at technique, but you have to grok it, right? You have to actually, your brain has to understand how light falls on the mini and how the metallic surface is going to react to it. So it's more thinking about light direction and light and shadow than it is, and reflection, than it is actually, you can do a pretty good slapdash NMM that isn't well blended, but still looks like metal. It's possible to do it. If you nail your highlights and shadows, you can do it. If you blend, then you can get a little bit, better at it. Like on the sword, it's better blended, but But yeah, so all right, let's get back down to the front. And then, of course, the more intricate the surface, the more you have to really know the rules so you can... so that you can apply them to the surfaces either as a whole, like the back, or specifically small areas. I had an apple fritter on the road. I was bad. There was a bakery right next to my hotel. And yes, it was good, but it could have... Oh, he actually needed the cone. How miss him. The cone of shame. Yeah, I like Boston creams. I like the custard filled chocolate frosting. Those are my favorite. That is my... Anne's like has a hard time like saying no to a donut, but apple fritters are second. That's funny, missed him. Kiki is entering the willful teen years now. She was playing around at the vet yesterday. We were watching her because she really doesn't like being restrained. And this probably comes from an encounter at her other vet, it was now her ex-vet, when she was very young, where she was really fighting them and they really fought back, and she just like was really upset as a puppy. But she's also pretty willful. So the vet worked with her yesterday really nicely, like seriously spent a half an hour just sitting on the floor, like getting to know Kiki to give her a positive experience, which is great. But I really feel like we're going to end up having to just hold the dog down and do what we need to do, because she needs to learn that she can't game the system. Because I was watching her yesterday and I think she was gaming the system. She's not an unconfident dog. She is not a shy dog, but she was acting like one. And you could tell because her tail would wag, right? She'd actually be like, this was a game to her. So it's, ooh, an apple shoe bun. Interesting. Okay, if you start shouting. As long as you're shouting things like Anne is amazing, I'm okay with this, Quindy. All right, so let's get our colors mixed up while we talk. But yeah, so the Keekster, I think, and Kiri was like this a little bit when she was younger too. They're smart dogs and they will game you. They will manipulate you. Like herding breeds, oh yeah. They will have you wrapped around their little paw. All right. So we were using some reddish color with this. So we were using, I think, ruddy leather. So we chose our colors here. No, that's not ruddy leather. Where's my ruddy leather? There it is. So my usual color with this is rich leather, but actually, as I recall, went a little bit darker. Usually, though, this is the kind of color I use for gold, brass, bronze. It depends on how cold you want it or how warm you want it. You can see that this one is a little bit orangier and this one's a little bit maybe greenish. So, Quindy. Yeah, shouting is the default. It's the default language when working with spreadsheets. Yes. But yeah, so either of these is a good choice. The NMM Gold Shadow was a little bit darker. I think I went with that. I also did some shading, I think, with black and brown. But this is kind of my mid-dark. And I don't start with a lighter gold color when I do NMM because it just makes everything way too yellow, in my opinion. So I've done that over the years, and I always end up having to knock it down with a significant wash and then work it back up, and I feel like that's wasting. Yep. Yeah, I missed him. Well, he's younger, or he's a smaller dog, right? So he's going to mature faster than Kiki, who is a big dog. That's usually how it works. It's not a, totally all the time thing, but... All right, so I'm going to get my base coat back together. I think... Get my base coat on, get my shadow color, we'll get it all together, and I think I was working with Candlelight on this one. Maybe, yeah, I think it was Candlelight. Don't remember. What you'll learn if you watch enough of my videos is that actually the colors that I go to as far as my yellow for the NMM is not really important. They tend to all be around the same result anyway, unless you really change it up. Like whether it's Lantern or Candlelight doesn't really matter. If you went with something very, very different, like something like yellow mold, then that will give you a very different result. But in general, I'm always working with something like one of these, which is a warm yellow. I don't work with oxides. the yellow oxide. I don't actually use those for NMM anymore. I find that when you mix one of these yellows with like your NMM Gold Shadow or your rich leather, that you naturally end up with an oxide type color, but that it's a little easier to blend and it's a little more vibrant. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, I missed him. That happens sometimes. Wow, that poor little guy. He's like really, he's gone through it, hasn't he? I mean, I know he's a devil just like mine, but when you get your teeth yanked out and you get you get neutered. It's been a bad day in Malcolm's world. Yeah, Kiki's just seeing what she can get away with. Like, when it comes to strangers, she'd rather not have them all over her, and so she's seeing if she can push it to essentially get where she doesn't have to meet them, or doesn't have to let them, you know, pet her or handle her. And Kiri pulled this when she was younger, at about this age. But Kiri was also a lot more of a wanted-to-please-me dog. Like, she and I had a pretty tight bond. And Kiki is a lot more of a confident, her own dog. So this will be interesting to see how this develops. Yeah, he got the works for sure. Poor pupper. I do feel bad for them. They don't know what's going on and they get dragged to a place that smells weird with strangers and then they have crazy stuff happen to them. Like, we can't blame dogs for not liking the vet, in my opinion. All right, we also were using a little bit of a reddish color for this, so we're going to get a couple drops of our Ready Leather. I'm going to go back and show. So that's a black and brown. That's the NMM Gold Shadow. I just use this as a little bit of a blending agent or a glazer. It is if you want a reddish gold, I think it's a go-to. You could also use something like a clear bright, like Oxide Brown, or this is the old HD Ruddy Brown, which is an equivalent for Oxide Brown. But yeah, so I'm going to use Candlelight. Uh-oh, at least I'm going to use it if it unclogs. It's one of those days. Oh, and his microchip. Wow. Yeah, Kiki, we need to... Because I rebelled at the other vet, she's been off her heartworm med for 2 months, and I need to get her back on the rotation. So that's why we need to actually do a blood draw, which she's never had done before. And to be fair, this vet is actually okay with, like, we talked, she had a dog that she just couldn't get to, it couldn't really be restrained for blood draws, that she had to essentially sedate every time. So she understands. I really like this vet. Having talked to her for half an hour yesterday, I'm like, this is my new vet. I had a really good relationship with my vet in Texas, and I just was not, I didn't feel it with this other vet. So the first vet we had was not a fan. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate what I said about the oxide thing. So when I take, let's add some water to these guys. We want this, the black and brown is a very high coverage paint. So I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do 1 on there. I'm going to do 2 there. This is going to get changed, but I'll do 1 there for now. And this is also going to have white added to it. I'll do 1 there for now. So, and yeah, this is a lot of colors for NMM. Minimum is usually, I'd say a minimum is 3 if you're if you're doing like a lot of like blending. If you're using a wet palette, you can get away with your mid, your dark, this, and white, right? That's pretty much what you could get away with. But you don't need all these different colors. But because I'm doing a little bit touches of red, I mixed up that oxide. Yeah, I mean, some dogs and cats are better. Like Kiri, all of my dogs, this is my first real challenge with the vet, actually, Kiki is. All right, so we take a brush full of this, and if I add it to this, I end up with something that looks like yellow ochre. Ta-da. So that's why I don't use yellow ochres in my NMM anymore. I've just essentially decided that I don't, because I was always using a brighter yellow when I went to mix highlights, and I'm like, you know, my shtick is usually, I don't want to go to 2 different yellows. I'd rather use the same yellow and just mix other things into it so the colors have something in common. So essentially that fueled this when I kept seeing that this color was a lot like the ochre, I was like, I really don't need that oxide. Now, you can go the other direction as well. You can use NMM Gold Base, and instead of going up to NMM Gold Highlight, you can just use NMM Gold Base and add white to build your yellow if you want to. Oh, yeah, Kronika. Yeah. All right, since I added a drop of pure white in there, I'm adding another drop of water. We know this is a highlight. I might end up adding yet another drop of light. But this gives us our really bright yellow. If you look at real gold and where the light hits it, it's quite bright yellow. So there we go. And now our pure white. So when we're talking about pentads, this is definitely a pentad. If you drop out my little glaze, that's just to warm up the gold a little bit. You got your shadows, your mid, your highlight, and then your final highlight is almost, with NMM, it's pure white, or it is just really close to pure white. You could get away with something that had a tiny bit of yellow mixed into it, but I tend to like to go pure white for the pop of it. And this does depend on your light source, of course. So like if you are working with a colored light source, then you won't necessarily have pure white. You might have pure white plus a little bit, like if your color source is like magenta neon, then you might have a white with a bit of the magenta in it. Yeah, that's where I carry pet insurance now, Gurnico. Like, Kiri's cancer, we would have been like $10,000 in debt if Kiri's cancer if we hadn't had pet insurance. So yeah, now I carry it. Alrighty, so now we got all our colors. We've got, we're setting up. There are a couple different ways to do NMM on a complex surface like this. One is the way that I've set it up, which is probably feels more natural to many of us mini painters, which is just to isolate each area and color it accordingly. There is another way to do this, which is more the way that David does it, where you're painting broad, like anything that's upper gets like a broad light, like you paint it all with a lighter yellow. The shadow area gets painted all darks, and then the mid area gets painted in the middle. I have an example of a model that he started. And the advantage of doing it the way that David does it, where you can just see where he's just blocked in very much a lot of light on the upper parts of the metal. And then you can see the shadow areas down here where he's only touched a couple of highlights for the light coming down. So this is all dark. This is all light almost. But I mean, the difference is just you can see it a lot better, right? You can see the light a lot better with this way. But you have a lot more work sometimes to do, and it requires a higher instinctual grasp of how the light's going to fall. So you can start out trying it this way. I usually break it down this way because I find this easier for a lot of painters to learn. Once you've got a good grasp of how the light falls and how it's going to act, you could move to that more blocking in broad areas kind of thing. So yeah, so like if I was doing it that way, all of this upper area would probably be this yellow ochre type of color. And I probably will go that way a bit, actually. So like if we were going to go that way, say I mix my NMM Gold shadow with a bit of my ochre color and pop that up on the top parts of this to just lighten it a little bit. And I'm not paying attention to the details at all. It's counterintuitive, and that's why I usually say, unless you have a very good grasp of lighting, you don't work it this way. You work it the other way. So we're highlighting all of that. The brows are also going to get this. Yeah, pet insurance, sadly. I mean, I have issues with insurance sometimes, but in general, pet insurance has been a good thing for me when my animals have run into trouble. Alrighty, so everything else, everything up there is lighter. Although I did leave some of my shadows, as you can see. There's still a little bit of definition. Oh, that's pretty cool, Kodiak. All right, so the nose also sticks out, so we're gonna bring that up as well. A lot of this other stuff is very recessed. So I've got a little bit of the eyes here that stick out. So that pretty much concludes, like, that is all the stuff that's gonna have the light hitting it naturally. Anything else down under here where it's all undercut, all of this is going to be reflected light. Like, you can see that it's in shadow. So given that, all going to be reflected light. So we're going to, at that point, you start highlighting at the bottom of things, kind of like the bottom of the tongue here. The tongue also stuck out. I just did that real quick when we were kind of demonstrating a bit of NMM. And this kind of also demonstrates the basics of NMM. And I did do a $2 PDF on this on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig. But speaking very generally, you isolate where the top, where the strongest highlight is going to hit the piece. And underneath that, you've got to have a shadow of sorts. And then the bottom gets another highlight because of reflected light. That's the two. What you're essentially telling the eye is shiny and reflective. The dark and light combo here makes the illusion of shiny, and the highlight on the underside makes the illusion of reflective. Those are the two qualities of metal that you're trying to capture. And so you need those two things. Most people, when they start NMM, they make the mistake of not putting a dark enough shadow in, and that's why that gives you something that looks like stone and not metal. Or they'll forget to do the reflections, and then it just looks off because you've got the shiny, but you don't have the reflective read. So you need both, even if it's just minimal with the reflections. Gosh, Dogfather, that's too bad. You've lost a lot of them in the past year. It's been hard for you. Alrighty. So just since it's around there, I'm also doing this little vessel thing real quick. Yeah, you've had a hard year and a half for sure. Hopefully life gives you a little bit of room to recover after this. Now, on small things with the intricate detail, you can generalize more and still have it look like NMM. Like, there's not a lot of room here to do a highlight and a reflection on tiny surfaces, so you just kind of do pinpoint highlights with dark shadows and you get it. But when you have a big enough surface to show reflections, that's where you have to do it. I'm going to be using my black and brown as a bit of a liner here, just to make sure that everything stays separate. All right. I can also use it as a much darker shadow if I want to put a very dark shadow in the recessed areas. That gives me more definition. Or if I have lost some detailing, I just want to bring in a real subtle line to get the details to come back like I did there. So next level of highlighting, popping up the light yellow, the yellow I mixed the white into, the really bright one. I don't want this to take over the surface, but I'm using it to bring out some details. I don't want to cover over all of my mid, so I can bring in my yellow oxide a little bit more, my yellow oxide-like color a little bit more if I feel like I'm losing it. You still need transitions. There we go, just picking up these little details. So you're using that second to last highlight, with the last highlight being pure white, but the second to last highlight really to pick out the detail against the background of the mid-tone and a couple of mid-shadows. So even though you had a generally lighter color up here, and you can still see that, you can see that the top is, the shadows are lighter, right? But they're still there. And we're shrinking our highlights as we go. Yeah, it's really cool. That's why I kind of concentrated on it today, Quindy. And for under reflections highlights, you don't want them to be up to pure white. You want them to be kind of middle. So I'm going to do a little bit of highlight at the bottom of the teeth. Again, a reflected light's coming from a different direction, so it's not going to be at the top of a area. It's going to be out the bottom, just like the bottom of the tongue there. So it's a little counterintuitive that way. Here on this little tusk, I actually have enough room to do a highlight and a reflection, so I do one. It is very weeby. So we're just doing little touches to keep that area mostly dark with just the touches of, you can see that it's just those little touches of highlights through here, right? And if you remember, that's the same thing that David did on his model, where he had mostly the light, but then down here is just a couple of touches in the shadowed areas to show where the light is coming down. It's the same kind of thing. Hey Roger, 30 months, nice. So I talked yesterday about how, like, sometimes the road to competency is you do it a lot and then you get very much faster at it. Yesterday I blocked in skin tones on a bust for my $10 PDF for my Patreon. And this is 25 minutes, I think, with the face being, you know, finish-ish, soft finished face, and then the rest you can just see the blocking in work. But I could never have done a face like that was pretty much that good in 25 minutes, when I was much younger in the hobby. It took painting a bunch of busts to do it. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do because I was gone and I totally forgot. But, I mean, I know what it's going to do to our Reaper Con plans. I've talked to David about it today. I may not bring Kiki if I can't. Obviously, if I can't stay at the Hilton Hotel, then I can't have a dog in one of the surrounding hotels necessarily. So that, and I'm rethinking like how many road trips I really need to be doing in the fall. There's a possibility of another very long road trip in the fall. So now we're getting to the point where we're really starting to see more of the metallic, right? We're starting to see, but we don't have that white highlight yet, and that's what's going to finish it out. Yeah, for sure, Quindy. Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm gonna mess around on the computer today looking at options, and so I do need to put a little bit of a highlight here. All right. So that's all looking pretty good, but now we need that white highlight. So we need to look at oh, it's raining. We're supposed to have a few rainy days in a row. It was sunny this morning, but it looks like it wants to make my walk with Kiki an adventure. So now and I want you guys to kind of watch what happens when I start putting the white highlights on. So maybe we'll do the white highlights on this side first, just so we can compare. And this is where kind of thinking about where the highest highlights would be is important. And it's going to be a spot highlight with a really shiny gold, so you're really not going to do much of it. Yeah, definitely a big con now. I might be able to get into the artist block. That's kind of my fallback. I tend to like to pay for my own room because I don't know that I don't teach 4 classes anymore. Like, I just really don't have the oomph for it. Haven't for years, and so I don't feel good taking a room, even though I have a relationship with Reaper that sometimes makes it an available choice for me, but we'll see how we can do it this year. So yeah, you guys might not have to sit through another award ceremony with Lovejoy. Although it sounds like it was very entertaining last year, without me. So tempted to hand off the mic to Derek permanently. No, it's not a huge capacity hotel. No, not even close, Quindy. Not even close. Unless everybody was like 4 to a room, right? So I'm putting the highlights mostly toward the center because I've got a center light source. It's how we've done everything thus far, is pretty much an overhead light source. But it's looking much more shiny on that side. Definitely a spot highlight in the eyes. Spot highlight on the top of the nose. Now the under reflection won't get a pure white highlight, but I can bring it up with the bright yellow. Well, yeah, they probably didn't anticipate having such a big convention in Denton, right? Of all places. I suspect most of the like conventions and weddings they do are much smaller. But I mean, even like Adepticon, you can't get there's no way you're getting a room at the Con Hotel unless you are like right off the mark on the day they release them and you're like lucky enough to get that first slot. Okay, so little bits of the yellow highlight, but not the white to bring out more there. Yeah, built for work conventions and weddings, yep. That's all they thought they'd get. They didn't realize that Reaper was in the cards. But then that's why we get really nice treatment from them, right? Because we are probably one of the few events they have that actually will fill the hotel. Now, if I feel like I need, like, on these teeth, maybe a little more of a highlight, then I'll grab some white and I'll mix it with my yellow. Oh, got a little bit blurfed there in the middle. Yeah, there were like 3 or 4 universities in Denton there. UNT and Texas Women's University and a couple of other smaller colleges. So we have a lot more shine here. I do feel like I need more of a bridge color here. I think I went from my ochre, I lost a lot of my bright yellow highlight. So I need to add that back in a little bit, recover my yellow. When you notice that your gold stops looking yellow, that's what you've done. You've covered up your yellow highlight with your white. So that you're not left with the feel that you want. So even adding in, you can get over this by doing a glaze with your yellow, or you can do like I'm doing and just add in more touches of yellow until you feel the balance shift. Yeah, I'm trying not to stress out about it. I'm just like, we'll see what we can do. I mean, worst case scenario is probably David has to teach more classes if we're going to get an artist block room. I don't know though. I'm one of my friends and attendees pretty much suggested I go without teaching anything, and I kind of am in that mode. I've taught for so many years. I teach online every day for you guys. I really feel like if I'm going to go to ReaperCon, it should just be like I should keep my stress level as low as I can, essentially. I would rather make myself available for like individual critiques more and talking to people about like, because the thing I'm really good at, and I feel like I don't get to do this in a class, is targeting. Is like one person comes up to me and they're like, okay, what's the one thing I can do on this model that will make the biggest difference? I'm really good at that. I'm really good at focusing in on that. And making myself available for that, I feel like would be higher value. All right, I have lost a little bit of my, now if you lose a little bit of your depth, like if you get too yellow, that's when you go back to your base color, this kind of, usually it's rich leather, but here it's the NMM gold. I can take this, maybe mix it a little bit more with my mustardy color over here, and then get something that I can glaze with or put paint over. So if you wash out too much, then you've got to go back to your mid-tone or your mid-shadow. Whatever's more saturated, whatever's kind of more intense, and kind of glaze over that little loop is what I had. It had washed out too much. Yeah, we'll go somehow. It's just like whether I can get a room in the Con Hotel will determine, you know, a lot of things. A lot of specifics about what we do. But I do want to go. I do want to see everybody. I really missed it last year when we had the baby puppy and I just couldn't. But then by then the baby puppy will have a lot more adult brain cells. So we'll get our highlights going over here, and I'm going to remember that I lost a lot of my yellow last time, so I'm going to expand it a bit over here before I pop my white highlight in. I don't know, Pendrake. Understand that lately teaching in person has been a very stressful to me, Pendrake. And I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm like, if it doesn't feel good to me, I don't want to do it. Straight up. That's just the way it is. I love teaching online. I love doing Twitch. I love doing, you know, videos and doing Twitch. Like, I really, this is fun for me. But at a con, I teaching a class, I think one of the things, the reasons that I am unhappy with it is just that it only allows a few people to get in. And there are so many more people that could use the information, which is why I'm like, I'd rather just not teach the class. I'd rather just talk to people, make myself available, and let you guys know I'm available. Come over, you know, get a critique, talk to me about a technique that you're having problems with, right? I can demo, I can do stuff like that. Like, a lot of our instructors don't have the time to do that precisely because they're teaching so many classes. That's why I like to pay my own way at ReaperCon, even though the hotel is expensive. I like not to have to teach all those classes to get the Reaper room. So, but I might be able to negotiate something with Ron, so we'll see. There we go. We won't do it. The problem is, Agent Marvel, is that Reaper Virtual Expo was a lot of work for like Justin and John in the background. But Justin and John also really are on site at Reaper because they do virtual content now, right? They are working on things and they always have something up on our channel during the con. So you can't really split it. You need two more people to organize virtual content for just making an online suite of classes versus doing stuff at the con. I don't think the virtual expo is in our future again because I feel like it's harder. Like, we have to pay for that hotel space and that's not cheap. And so getting people to actually come to the con in person in order to access the stuff is how we pay for that. Like, so it's you'd have to find a model that would pay for the con, because we try to at least break even on every Reaper con. Yeah, that was what the artist conference was always about. I just don't know. It is a lot. Because of the way that Reaper is such a small company, guys, every extra thing like that we choose to do takes away a lot of resources from ReaperCon primarily, right? Because what you guys don't see is that the minute ReaperCon ends 1 year, maybe 2 weeks later, maybe 3 or 4, we start planning the next ReaperCon. That's what Adrian always did. Because you have to have some stuff on a cycle that's that far out. So if you have to then take 2 or 3 months out of your cycle to work on a virtual expo, you're taking time and resources away from making ReaperCon the best it can be. It's we hate to hear it, but it is true. Yeah, we did it because we were doing virtual things at that time, you know. So Ed was always a great experimenter. He would always be like, you know what? We haven't done this before. Let's try it. Let's see how it works. And then he was always very strategic in his thinking when he assessed, did it work? Did it work to the point we wanted it to work in the way we wanted it to work? If it didn't, could we get it there with another year? Or is it just not going to be worth it when we could put these time and resources into ReaperCon, which he very much felt was our flagship event. Like, and then you have to factor in Kickstarter years, right? If we're going to keep doing Kickstarter, that also takes a vast amount of time and resources. So, when it comes down to it, like, it's a dance when you've got a mid-level company like Reaper is, you know, where how much time and effort you put into stuff like that. Because remember, our main business is not conventions. Our main business is producing great miniatures. So you have to prioritize. Everybody hates to prioritize. Everybody hates to, like, give up a cool thing because they want, you know, because of the other thing. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes a company can balance all of the above, right? But I feel like because our people like John and Justin are so, you know, it's pretty much just those guys. I don't know who's got ReaperCon planning now that Adrian is not at Reaper anymore. I would guess Ron does. In which case he's doing that in addition to his real job, quote unquote, the art job. So yeah. It's true, Kodiak. I mean, to be fair, you know, like I said, we've got a lot of online content for you. You're here with me every day. So, you know, we do what we can to satisfy our online audience by getting, you know, me and Rhonda and sometimes Proctor and then, you know, our other great people, Josh and Luca, you know, to try to give you guys more content that you can use. In some ways, the pandemic was like really good for community involvement at the remote scale, right? For that reason, ironically, it was. But yeah, but now we're still locked into. Oh, yeah, as far as you know. That's what I thought, Quindy. And you know, that's a ton of work. Like, it's better because, like, Adrian had it mapped out for years. Like, she'd refined the process and Ed had refined the process so that but it's still not just a hit a button and go. It's still a lot of work to put on ReaperCon. And the bigger it gets, the more work it is. We would have to do a bit of a shift or hire somebody. So, for those who are familiar with Penny Arcade Expo, the Penny Arcade guys, you know, ran the expo when it was much smaller. But as it got very larger, if I'm recalling the story right, but the Wikipedia page talks about it. But as it got larger, they actually had to find somebody separate to run the con because it had gotten to the point where it was pulling them away from what they were doing, right? So it's like that with Reaper. You know, Reaper's got a priority, producing great miniatures at a reasonable cost and making the hobby accessible for gamers and painters, right? Producing a high quality product at an accessible cost and making it available. And their secondary, you know, they have secondary goals, right? Is when they're running a Kickstarter for infrastructure building, when they're running ReaperCon, which is their big fan event of the year, you know, to gather the community. And they still do virtual stuff during ReaperCon. They just don't do all of the classes online, right? So those are priorities. So to get the convention priority popped up in that priority listing, like that's what you would need to have a rationale of hiring more people for it. And then you're paying those people. How are you going to recoup those costs, right? It might not be worth it until ReaperCon started pulling in 4,000 or 5,000 people, if it ever does, right? If it quadrupled in size, would that be enough? because it works that way, right? You've got to think about the economics of the situation, because the last thing you want to do when your priority is producing great miniatures at a reasonable cost is throw a bunch of money into stuff that doesn't serve that. And Dave is very conscious of this. Dave is excellent at juggling this, right? Yeah, so you understand Red Links, exactly. Yes, she had a huge whiteboard. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that was Adrian's way to work, right? Ron has a different way of working. I'm a to-do list person, so I would look at Adrian's board and I would go, yes, this is just what I would do. But yeah, it's harsh sometimes when you're trying to run a thing, when you own a company, and you have to establish priorities, and when you have to say no to great ideas, right? Doing a virtual con for fans who cannot make it to ReaperCon, great idea. Sometimes even a great idea has to be said no to serve the priorities of the company. So it is sad. Be sure, Reaper knows. Reaper knows you guys would love another online con. Like, all of you who can't make it to ReaperCon, we understand. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of fans out there who would love to see another thing like that. But can we make it work without sacrificing our ideals and the focus of the company? That's the thing, right? Sometimes you have to put the blinders on and say, not now, maybe later, no guarantees. We get it. We're sorry. Like, sometimes you just have to do that. Hey, HM Dog, you're back. Awesome. Prime, 38 months. Insane. Yeah. Yeah, you start planning for the spring event in November, and that's only 50 to 100. Yeah. Now multiply that by the 1,200 ReaperCon, 1,500 ReaperCon attendees, right? Multiply the headache, and you'll get it. You understand. Like, that's why ReaperCon is all hands on deck. Like, ReaperCon and Kickstarters. Like I said, those are our two. It's ReaperCon. It's it's the miniature production, and it's the infrastructure building. Like, what the Kickstarters allow us to do. And to be honest, I'm not in the meetings, so there may be priorities that I don't know about. Those are just the priorities that I can think of off the top of my head. It's not like an official Reaper priority list. It's just what I've noticed through the years. But Reaper has its hands in more than one, egg basket at this point. So there's probably priorities that I don't even know about, right? Like, maybe one of the new priorities is building up our 3D printing department. That's going to take hiring and training, equipment, and all sorts of stuff, right? So that would definitely take away from running a digital con, right? If we put resources into that to make it work, and who knows how much resources we need to put in. So there's always these trade-offs, right, in business. And it is a business. And this is why Reaper is still in it after all these years, when so many other miniatures companies have gone just down the tubes. Is because Reaper, even though it understands that sometimes it means fans will be disappointed, Reaper has confidence that the fans are still on board for the basic, like, what Reaper's about. The awesome miniatures at an accessible price. Like, there we are. Excellent. So we can really see the light coming down now with the white highlights on here and the reflections. And if I back out, it can be a little odd sometimes to make things read right when you've got a big smooth surface compared to a really elaborate surface like this, but I think it's reading pretty well. Kiki, enough! Please. Axe murderers are not coming. The world is not ending. You are okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, conference space for sure. We're having trouble with that with our Shiloh Shepherd National. Just finding a place that'll work for the amount of money we need it to work, Good girl. Settle down. Oh. I don't know what they are. They're little baubles. I haven't painted them yet. Yes, everyone panic, Kiki says. Kiki, enough. Settle down. Settle down, you little dweeb. Yeah, Karen Michael Cosby makes an excellent point. It is also a matter of instructors volunteering to teach. Yeah. Right, exactly. Right. Yeah, and when everybody is coming to the con because they're excited about the in-person con, you're right, then you don't have any instructors who want to do it virtually. Especially because there's like, I don't know how much compensation there actually was for teaching virtually, right? Sometimes you have to take that into effect if you're, especially if you're a freelance painter. The time that you spend preparing for teaching a class online and then teaching it, like, that's taking time away from other things that you do. So, all right, so this will be a shadow underneath here. Here we can work the band kind of thing in because we have a very long, skinny thing here. So alternating bands of dark and light works well. So I'm going to do some wide bands and some narrow bands here. I'm going to grab some of my red also. I forgot my red. So I'm going to add touches of the red here and there into the shadows up here. Just a little bit. Touches of red here and there don't make a huge difference, but they can give you the appearance of a more complex gold. Just adding in that other color. Oh, I got the eyeballs painted over. Now I need to go back over. But yeah, I'm not sure what the little baubles are. They're cute. I'm sure there's something based on something historical, but I have no idea. Or like a some sort of like thing that's typically hung from masks like this, you know. No idea what they are. Well, we have a real lantern down there. But yeah, so now I have to go back and re-highlight the eyeballs because I totally blurfed over them with the reddish color. But yeah, I'll probably put this one aside after this. I had hoped to be able to inspire myself to finish it, but at this point, the problem with all the big models is the same. It's like just more of the same, and you don't really learn anything. Like at some point, it's all just repetition. So this is the problem with big models in general. It can be good for you as a painter to do a big piece because then you're essentially practicing your technique over and over, and it helps you. It helps you get better. But as a streamer, it does not help because then you're just like, here I am doing the thing again, right? And everybody's like, oh, I'll go watch somebody doing something more interesting. So essentially doing little bands of light and shadow. This is more of a kind of a satiny feel for this edge here because I'm not doing really sharp definitions between light and dark. I'm doing more of a blended definition. I think they're fancy baubles. Yeah, you could do different colors here. If you did do different colors, Twisted Oma, I would do one with the kind of aqua color and one with blue. And I would probably make that decision based on where they were. So this one would be aqua because it's surrounded by more blue, and this one would be blue because it just has a little bit of blue here. Things like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's not, Carrie Michael. It's not. Like, that's where, when I was on staff, that's where you would have had an advantage because you could have essentially brought it up to me. And I would have brought it up in the general meeting and the earlier planning process. And I would have talked to whoever, at that point it would have been Adrian, to keep it on the radar. But there's so much going on at ReaperCon. And all rooms are usually filled. Like, remember, the thing about this, and I know this because I've seen these con breakouts. I've seen a ReaperCon breakout post-mortem. Every square foot has to pay for itself. Like, every square foot we're being charged for. We're being charged for a certain amount. So when you take a room, you know, and that square footage, and you give it over to Twitch streaming, which gives in no income or very little income. You essentially have to make up that money somewhere else instead of using that room for classes, where then it can pay for itself. So that's kind of a barrier there, right? Make no mistake. I keep bringing up like money and finances, but seriously, guys, it's like, otherwise you can't, as a company, you can't afford to run one of these cons and end up tens of thousands of dollars in the hole. Like, you really can't. You have to be this conscious of whether the con is paying for itself. And this has been the case since we were a very tiny con. And this is why Reaper's run by accountants. Everybody bow down before Reaper Dave, because he deserves it. Not only does he have great taste in animals, you know, being a dog guy, he is also just awesome. He doesn't get enough awesome appreciation, I think. Yeah, exactly. Yes, if people streamed online, there would have to be a charge, and yet how do you do that, right? Like, you gate them. You'd have to gate them through a process. Like, at that point you have to, like, you're introducing a whole barrier, right? Because then, okay, well, now we need to find a service that will let us gatekeep these classes, and we have to work with whatever the payment system on that. We have to get a new account. We have to figure out how to work it. And then we have to see if people actually pay for them, right? If people are actually willing to. Or if they're so used to getting free content on Reaper's platforms that they don't have any interest in paid content. I mean, that's true too. Yeah, exactly. Much as we love to make you guys happy, at the end of the day, we got to keep Reaper running, right? At the end of the day, it's making the company profitable so that it can keep on doing all the things you guys came to us for in the first place. Like, there are plenty of companies that have kind of lost a bunch of money through forgetting to serve their initial purpose that attracted people in the first place, right? Not just in the hobby, but everywhere. Like, when you come to a company, it's like if Nike switched off of doing athletic shoes because they thought there was more money in them, or one of their owners wanted to try out, you know, doing prosthetic shoes, or, you know, something for people who needed special shoes, you know, but they'd lose all of their people who originally came to them. Like, they'd lose all their fans who came to them for athletic shoes. So it doesn't say that they wouldn't be a good, like, therapeutic shoes company. They could be the best, but they would lose a ton of fans, right? Because they aren't serving the purpose of the company. Their focus shifted away from that. So I'm doing these. And I like to do the edge, because it's always a highlight around the edge, right, with NMM, at least when you've got a surface that has an edge. And then kind of do an hourglass shape inside there. Yep. Yeah, and a couple people would, but would enough people? And that's the question, and that's why it's a gamble. It's a risk, right? It's a risk. And you have to ask yourself, like, why would you take that risk? What do you get from taking that risk as a company owner? Because you want to make people happy, but you'd rather make more people happy than less. And you have no way of knowing what kind of attendance you get, especially if they look at, and Reaper does tend to do this, it looks back at what they've done, what they've tried in the past, and whether it worked. So if they didn't feel like they got great attendance, quote unquote, at a virtual expo before, if they didn't succeed in monetizing their last virtual expo, because let's face it, we don't know. Right? We have no idea when they did that virtual expo if it managed to pay for itself. Maybe it didn't. And if it didn't, that's a huge blockade to doing another one. Yeah, price point, right? And that would drive some people away, depending. Especially like I said, a lot of people are used to the free content. So, Yeah, it's always. I mean, our brains are wired to love black and white. We love to say, well, I would pay for it, so surely a bunch of people would, and you probably are right. But would that bunch of people be enough people? That's the question. And should Reaper take the risk on trying it again, especially if it didn't work the first time? I think that if the virtual expo, when they did it back in whatever it was, 21. If that had been wildly successful, I think there would be no question about doing another one. So I suspect it wasn't wildly successful. Or it could, like I said, maybe it was successful, but we've run out of people resources. You just have no idea. I have no idea. Time constraint, yep. Yeah, I think so too, Quindy, because I feel like everybody at Reaper is stretched thin enough. We always have been. And so it's kind of probably what my first instinct was that such a thing would take time out of planning all the other things that are more integral. Yeah. So because we don't want a virtual expo at the expense of not having ReaperCon. Or at the expense of making ReaperCon like kind of, half-assed and not work very well, right? We don't want that. But then again, that's a different values for different people as well, right? Some people care a lot. Some people care more about just having the thing and making it available, and other people, like myself, care more about if we're going to do something, we need to do it right? But that's not everybody. Yeah, and that's true. Yep, a lot of people liked it. Yep. We're not ignoring the people who liked it, but I know there's probably extenuating, stuff that would be why it hasn't come back. Having worked at Reaper for so many years, it is just having the number of apples you're juggling, right? You got to make it sure that you can catch that next apple. You don't want to send it down to the floor. Right, exactly. Well, I think there wasn't an in-person ReaperCon, and I think probably Reaper, once they decided to commit to it, Reaper wrestled up, essentially went to each of the painters, if I remember correctly, and just pretty much said, guys, we really, we want to do this virtual expo. We'd really love for you to teach, can you make the time to do it, right? But that's like a personal request from Reaper. It's not like hey guys, here, we're willing to pay you this much, and we're just asking a bunch of people, or it was a special circumstance, right? Because as you say, there wasn't an in-person ReaperCon. We had the resources then to put toward working with painters remotely and getting that all figured out. Yeah, so oh yeah, I haven't even touched the lamp yet. I haven't touched the lamp, Twistoma. But at this point, I'm like I said, I'm considering just dropping this model from the rotation. But I wanted to kind of do different areas to kind of show you guys the different way I tackle the different surfaces of NMM. So like doing the undulating lights and shadows here, and then remember to do your white outline. But yeah, I feel like Quindy's answer is the correct answer. We just do not have the resources to do both a virtual online expo and ReaperCon, no matter how far apart they are. Because ReaperCon is being planned for like now. ReaperCon has already been in planning as of right now. Like, if Reaper was like located in a very out of the way place where it was not really possible to have an in-person convention, I'm sure we would do a virtual one all the time. Yeah, there's also a big shoulder pad up here and a sword hilt, but I'm just haven't gotten to it yet, Twistoma. I work on things piecemeal, if you remember, and the reason that I do work on each part as a separate entity is that it gives me that feeling of accomplishment for getting that little part done instead of having a whole model that's like only 25% done, which stops me instantly from working on it. Yeah, you probably won't, Pendrake. You probably won't see it finished. Once it drops off the stream, it drops into the abyss in most cases. Like, there may be a point where maybe I add it back into the stream after I let it sit for a while and kind of look at it. But there are enough pieces that I don't like that I'm on the model that I tend not to finish models I don't like, because honestly, life is too short. Life is too short to like keep working on a model that like I'm kind of meh on. I'd rather work on a model I really like. So that's how you do like this sort of area. So we've got that, we got this, we got this. And then we can, since you mentioned the lamp, let's just do some work on the lamp since we have. You will force Anne to finish this figure. 100 subs. That's a good motivation there, Quindy. I'll get on board that with you. Even though there's no kickbacks, I just get paid. But, you know, I like getting paid, so. This model's a hard one for me because there are parts of it I like and parts of it I absolutely do not like, so. Hopefully Kiki's not currently eating something that I'm going to really regret. I hear chewing noises. Hopefully it's her bully stick. Need to get my little highlight pinpoints on the little trinkets also. There's just so much. The problem is there's just so much left to do. Like, it's like the model that I'm working on for the paint along, this elf, because it's so big. So big. And it is taking us ages to paint along all of the different. I've been working on the hair for like four months. And I'm still working on the hair, and it might not get finished this month, right? So it's just that there's so much. When you look at it, there's so much left to do, and that's the same problem with Jeannie. I hate the scale armor because it's impossible to paint well. I don't like this shoulder pad because it's also got some glummy detail on it. Probably the molding process. I'm not inspired by this bottle at all. I'm just not looking forward to painting it. Uh-oh. Now I lost my glasses because I put them over here. Yeah, so, and like this stuff around the wrist is kind of meh, and yeah. There's just a lot of areas I personally don't like much on the model. So when I have that many areas that I don't like, then it's just the way it is. And it's not like, you know, when somebody dislikes a part of a model, it's not like you convince them to like it. It's just the way it is. So, and like I said, it's too short. Time is too short. I would be much happier with this if I'd gone metallics. I could have made this look better with metallics, to be honest. But I didn't foresee that in time. And also I wanted to do the NMM so that I could do things like the mask here and the long thing and the knee pad and the different areas of gold NMM let you see how the highlight and shade works on different parts that are shaped differently, right? So yeah, there's just like, but yeah, I feel like if you are thinking about painting this model with the scale, you probably would be happier if you go metallics. Just giving you guys that heads up. But that's just how I feel. And it's not how everybody would react to the model. Some people would have no problem with the scales. But I'm a perfectionist. I've had to work very hard with myself to stop from derailing myself with my perfectionism. So for the most part, I can make my perfectionism kind of, you know, sit down and shut up while I execute on a thing. Like, I've gotten to that point. But there will come a point in a project where if I just really do not like it, I have to trash it, or I have to trash a big part of it. Well, yeah, and that takes a lot of effort, right? And at this point, that's the thing. Is like, can you fix it? Sure, I could go back and do green stuff and fix all the scales that are bad or do whatever. Would it take too much time? Yes, it would absolutely. And when you're at this point in the model, it utterly kills you to have to do anything like that. So yes, can you fix it? Sure, you can. Correct. Everybody's different. And so my reaction to this model may not be your reaction to this model. I did forget to line on this area though here. So doing that line there is nice because it lets you separate out some stuff. Like if I had to finish, like if you people like gifted 100 subs and I had to finish this model, I'd finish it. I'd complain a lot. But I do it. Like it's not like I can't finish it. It's simply the call of, you know, how much more can I teach with this model? And am I enjoying it? That's the question. Because as I mentioned, with teaching in general, I'm to the point in my life where if I'm not enjoying it, I'm done. Life is too short to make myself paint stuff that I don't love. Like it is. It's just that way. I've got so many minis. Quindy. But yeah, I mean... And there would have been a time where I would have forced myself to finish it, just feeling a responsibility to finish it, but I just really don't have that anymore. Let's face it, at least half the stream would be happy if I started a new model, so they didn't see this guy anymore. And that's why this stream isn't set up to be we are going to start to finish the model. Most of the time we do, but it's not a guarantee that we're going to. I couldn't do it if it was a guarantee. Because, you know, sometimes you just start hating a mini. It's what it does. You don't judge yourself over it, you just, like, move on. So I'm lining around the lamp just to bring it into sharper focus. Separate it. It serves as like, kind of a shading to separate it from all this misty goo. So having this hard line and doing the lining of all the pieces, and especially giving it a nice dark shadow, will make it look like a physical object, right? As opposed to the misty goo that's just swirlies. Oh, bye, Crowley. I never do that either, Miss Stimp. Still my mini. I don't want somebody, like... It just... Yeah, it's just... But yeah, it is what it is. I like fishy a lot better. But yeah, this is the problem with big minis. Is that unless they're going amazingly, like fishy, where I really like them, I do get tired of them. You can always just put a little bit of a wash down here to give it more of a space to sit on. Misty goo, yep. Quindy. Nope. Yeah, I mean, I do try to finish the figures because I think that gives the most value, right? But at the same time, it's nice not to have to if I feel the figure's just not really going well and I don't feel it. I've still done enough of it, honestly, that anybody who wanted to copy the paint job could use this as a guide. Like, we've done most of the areas, right? So you can use what I did on here to paint the shoulder pad up here. You know, you could use what I'm doing here to paint the hilt of the sword. You could do all that. Most of the model is done. It's just little bits that you got to finish. So the top of the lamp gets painted a lighter color, just like we did the monster face on his belt. So you can see that coming in right there. Because it's all facing upward, so it's all going to be lighter. So we're going to minimize our shadows on that part. I'm going to go pick up my P.O. Box keys today after I walk the Kiki and eat lunch. One more step toward the goal of publishing the thing. And I've got to having to switch my... Talk about guilt about finishing things and doing stuff. I had to really give myself a talking to because I didn't want to guilt myself for not working as much when I was in AZ because... yeah, I wanted to spend time with my parents. And it's like, that was very much had to really work with myself on that one, because in the past I have often taken the time in Arizona to be work time, extra work time for me, away from distractions. And it's usually pretty cool using it that way, but yeah, this time my parents are getting older, and I honestly, you know, you just never know. You never know what can happen. So I wanted to spend quality time, which meant I didn't get as much done on my stuff, on my book. Hey, Papa, you gonna chew your rope? Good girl. We're almost done. I didn't know I was gonna do a Reaper order. I'm not, I need to sit down and do it. I've got a list of things like the Kathy Waffle that I wanted to get. I have that over on my other desk, I think. Just a few things that I want to pick up. So you're going to highlight both top and bottom of the handle. We're going to not put a reflection under there yet. We're going to pop over here. These little things, the foot of the lamp, you're going to highlight kind of like we're highlighting these round places up here. So you're going to do your basic highlight and you're going to do your white spot, but you're not going to do a lot of intricacies. So white spot. When it's a very small area, you just need to hit the tops to make it look metal. So down on the foot. Owlbear's problem is just that there's so many feathers. Like, I would have to do like I did on the Sphinx and make it really different, like, so that each area of feathers was really different. So just a little white highlight on the front. Little white highlight here. Yeah. But yeah, making the owlbear a lot of different colored feathers would be the only way to do that one, because it's just, otherwise it would get so boring, guys. You see one area of feathers done like really well. When it comes time to do the other wing, you're just like, oh, this again? Right, so the lamp is set up very easily and quickly. My white's a little thin, so doing a couple different highlights helps to bring that out. Yeah. And that kind of thing is fun, right? But I also, it's not really like me. I tend not to do the jokey pieces, you know? Unless they just kind of accidentally turn into the Old Spice Genie. But, you know. A little bit of highlight on the bottom here, just to add a little bit of reflection. There we go. So we're just kind of adding in little highlights here and there. Papa, I hear you being a silly over there. I hear you being a silly. There we go. So we've got a lamp. So now when we zoom out, the gold is done on this area. Oh. WizKids are doing tie-in minis. Well, you know, they've always had they've always had trouble making miniatures give them the returns that they feel they should get from them. Yeah, the trailer for the D&D. I've seen the trailer for the D&D movie. Memeable. I mean, on one hand, Hasbro did finally understand with the new D&D movie that, like, oh, comedy works with D&D. But yes. Yep, have fun, Turgeon. Thanks for coming in. Yep. Yeah, tomorrow will be Gothy Girl. Quindy's fave. A little bit there on the wrist. So, and we're pretty much done. I've just got a couple of minutes. Doing a little bit on the necklace here because we have just a couple minutes. Oh yeah. Because of the OGL, because they're ripping their IP out from under a lot of small miniatures companies, Hendrik. In the name of consolidating it, being able to sell it and make it more profitable for themselves. Oh, yeah. Yeah, quality. Lack of quality. Yep, yep. Really, they're only glued and not sewn? Oh, man. With a gaming book, you can't have that. Like, this is the problem with Hasbro. They do not understand They don't understand gaming. They're making decisions for their company, and they don't understand gaming. Like, they don't understand the industry. Other companies have had this disconnect. I think the only thing sometimes that keeps the D&D, like, part of Hasbro afloat is the fact that D&D is so popular that even they can't tank it. Oh, boy, missed him. Yeah, essentially because their mask slipped, yep. Because now you can no longer look at Hasbro and believe they're doing the right thing. Because they were willing to do it until there's so much of their fan base. And I was wondering if enough of their fan base would strike back against them, but apparently it did. Apparently enough people, like, yelled at them that they were like, oh, large tactical error, you know. Yeah. Yeah, and some people will forgive over time. And yeah, it depends on the future. But, you know, it's sometimes, as you say, for some people, loyalty is is very important, right? And when they feel that their trust is betrayed, they have a hard time going back and giving their faith to that company again. I totally understand. There we go. So we have a shiny necklace. So, and that's just, some people are wired that way, right? And some people aren't. Some people would just give them another chance because they love the product. Some people will give them time and maybe come back around. It's kind of like with me with the Blizzard fiasco. I love Overwatch so much that I'm going to continue to play Overwatch. But I canceled my WoW subscription and I stopped playing. Because I can play Overwatch for free. So I'm not like necessarily supporting them financially. I'm willing to look at World of Warcraft again if Blizzard makes enough changes. And it seems like their toxic company practices are a thing of the past, right? And I won't take my support away from Overwatch because I believe in that team and I believe in the game. But yeah, it's like that for me. I'm willing to give people another shot, but at the moment, I'm like... And I will admit, like, even if I did kind of want to look into D&D again, all this fiasco would make me wait before doing so. There we go. Yeah, I got you, Miss Nimp. Yeah, it's just... It's a big company. Its priority is not little stuff. It's there. All right, there we go. We got a nice shiny necklace now too. See, little things like that are super fast to paint. So there. So we've got shiny necklace. We've got all our shinies on this side of the model. Shiny. Shiny. Except for the hat. We don't have the hat. But yeah. But yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and so you're more likely to just give them a pass and say, I still love the product, right, Agent Marvel? So you just do it. Nico, you're not shallow. You have depths of complexity. Your loyalty may be easy to purchase, but I mean, that's a lot of us. Yeah. Well, I mean, technically that means there might be contract stuff though. Like the actors have been paid, sure, but you never know if there's licensing agreements for merchandising. There usually are, I thought. Especially any merchandising that uses the actors' likenesses. So technically, there's still money to be made, I think. And this is just me, like, speaking in very general terms. I'm not an expert. If depths of something. But yeah, you never know. I mean, and we can all just agree to disagree on this one. Everybody will make their own decision about Hasbro, D&D, and whether to continue supporting the company and the product. And nobody's choice is better than anybody else's. It's all just how much, like, you know, how we in our gut feel about the thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's true enough, missed him. This is why I'm not going with a traditional publishing house, everybody, for my book. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, okay, the reason to go to the cinema is like, the reason to go to the cinema or see the movie at all is, I mean, one way that it could help actors and stuff, the actors and stuff, is if the movie does well, they might get on for a sequel. So, you know. Yeah, I'm not going to stop playing D&D because of strategic blunder. Yeah, gotcha, TXC. And it's going to survive. Like, stuff survives, right? Like I said, it's nobody's decision. Everybody's decision is right for them. Like you vote with your decision, and your decision is worth more than you think, because you know everybody else out there is also making their decision about this stuff, and it's where the weight of the most decision lands that will influence future actions. So, yeah, missed him. Yeah. Right. And that's a great thing. Once you own the books, you can keep playing, right? There you go. You don't have to spend any more. That's why, I mean, I can play Overwatch. I just keep playing. I don't have to buy the Battle Pass. It's free. So yeah. But yeah, so just, do your own thing. Do you. I mean, your decision, you have to feel right with your decision, right? It's a personal thing. So, all right, guys, it's 1:15, so I should go take Kiki for her walk. We did get a lot of bling done on Mr. Old Spice Genie. I'll think about doing something different next week. Like I said, I have some things that I want to pick up from Reaper. We'll see if they ship in time to replace Genie, or if I have to do one more day of him. We'll see. Right? Yeah. I mean, I've gotten rid of a lot of my old stuff, but yeah, TXC, I feel it. I still have like older Pathfinder stuff and stuff like that. But yeah, so yeah, just do you. Whatever. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, we all have like an emotional attachment to D&D in one way or another, and you just really have to do what feels right for you. And Hasbro's going to keep kicking along. It's been around for that long. But yeah, whether you support it is your own decision. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking about Old Spice Genie and dog things and all sorts of stuff. Tomorrow, we are back with Quindy's favorite character ever, Terezenia the Necromancer, who's really starting to look close to done if you look at her. With getting the silver going on and stuff there, we're getting there. We're getting there really close. I just have to make some decisions. Yeah, I just have to make some decisions about what to do with some areas. But yeah, so we will be popping along with this lady tomorrow and figuring out what we're going to do on some areas. Maybe we'll do some hair highlighting. Maybe we'll do some book. Maybe we'll get these little pouches figured out. Yeah, we'll do what we're going to do. So yeah, thanks everybody. All right. And I hope you all have a lovely end to your day, wherever you are and whenever you are, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.